Good morning, everyone. We will do a roll call in about 60 seconds. All right. Good morning, everyone. It is 9:30, and we will call this, it's the final Council Services Committee meeting to order. I just got sad. It's a very sad time for us all. But we're going to start with a roll call. This is very sad. I see a couple heads shaking no, but you'll miss this when it's done. Let's start with a roll call. Councillor Walters. I'm going in order of the desks because that's the screen in front of me. Or the Councillor Walters? No? Okay, we'll come back. Councillor Banga? Councillor Banga? Nobody wants to join for the last council services. This is sad. Councillor Zadok is here. I see him on the screen, correct?
I wouldn't miss this for the world.
Absolutely, I agree. Councillor McKean?
Yeah, I'm here.
Councillor Hamilton, Vice Chair.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Katarina, I see him.
It's throwing distance from each other.
That's correct.
I'm here.
Is Mayor Iveson joining us? No, I don't think so. Councillor Essinger?
I am here.
Councillor Cartmel?
Good morning.
Good morning. We don't have Councillor Henderson. Councillor Paquette? Councillor Paquette. Councillor Nicol informed the clerks that he was not going to be able to join us for this morning's meeting. I am here, and we'll just do one last check-in. Councillor Walters? And I think Councillor Banga did join us, though. Councillor Banga? I see you talking. You're still on mute, but I trust you've said something about how much you're going to miss council services. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for letting me in.
Excellent. Next up is a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Esslinger?
I'm happy to move today's agenda.
Thank you. Any questions about the agenda? Seeing none, please vote in eScribe, as it should be working, hopefully. I think so. There it is.
Yes for me, Tim.
Thank you, Councillor Cartmel.
Yes, for me.
Thank you,
I'm
Councillor
still
Banga.
again.
We have all the votes.
Thank you. Please display the vote. And that is carried unanimously. And next up, the approval of the minutes from the April 20th, 2021 Council Services Committee.
I'll move that.
Thank you, Councillor McKean. Any questions, errors, or omissions on the minutes? Seeing none, please vote.
Yes, for me.
Thank you, Councillor Banga. Just looking for Councillor Zadok's vote.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Zadok. We have all the votes.
Thank you. Please display the vote. And that is carried unanimously. Protocol items. There are no official items. I in all seriousness, want to thank all members of council. There were a lot of big topics that we dealt with in the Council Services Committee this term. And so I really appreciate everyone's dedication to it. Thank you to Vice Chair Hamilton for her support and excellent work, and just thanks to everyone for dealing with some pretty heavy stuff. So I will miss this committee. I do, really. I think there's some great work that happens in the area. So, but I'm biased, of course. Selection of items for debate.
There's only one.
So are you selecting it, Councillor Banga?
Sure.
Excellent, thank you. That item is selected. There are no other items to select, therefore there are no reports to vote on that haven't been selected for debate. Requests to speak, there are none. Request for time specific, there is only one item. Any councillor inquiries? I don't recall being notified of any. Good, okay. Well then let's go over to item 6.1, which is the 2021 Council Calendar feedback.
Thank you, Councillor Knack. And with your indulgence, if I could just possibly say a few words about eScribe before we move on to the presentation.
Sure.
Thank you. eScribe has assured me that making this work here in Edmonton is their top priority. They are online with us today. They're participating remotely. They have 2 developers set aside to address the issues. They realize that this is unacceptable, and I do appreciate your patience in all of this. I know it can't be easy. Thank you. So, for the calendar, basically we're here to see if you have any comments on how we can improve the calendar, or if there's anything you'd like to see changed for next year. In 2021, some things that were new, just because of COVID, we had those monthly EAC meetings. The bylaw says that we have to hold 1 meeting per year of that committee. We're planning on scheduling 2 for next year, but obviously if you think there's a reason to schedule more, we'd appreciate your letting us know. Obviously, Agenda Review Committee meeting schedule was amended to accommodate releasing the agendas 10 clear days prior to the meeting date. And we also scheduled recesses for the AUMA and FCM conventions. Some things that we held over from previous years, council meetings are on Monday with the continuation on Wednesday. Public hearings begin on Tuesdays, beginning at 1:30. We try not to schedule any meetings on Thursdays to allow you to review the agendas and attend board meetings. And we've also not been scheduling any meetings on National Indigenous Peoples Day and certain religious holidays as determined by the city chaplain. So what we're not proposing many changes for next year, but if you have any, please let us know. For the duration of Ramadan, in consultation with the city chaplain, we're ending meetings at 9 o'clock with your consent. That seems to be in consultation, as I said, with the chaplain who has consulted with the community. That would be a good time to end those meetings. And then the only other change is that executive committee would be moving to Wednesdays with community and public services on Mondays and urban planning committee on Tuesdays.
Great. So the speakers list, I think, is open for those that might have any feedback. Anyway, Councillor Banga did select it, so I'll actually go to him first and just check if he has any questions or any feedback to give. It's a little more informal since we're being asked for that. Councillor Banga? I'm going to assume by the lack of unmuting that you were okay for the moment, so I'll go to Councillor McKeon.
Yeah, just a couple of quick things for consideration. Denny and Aileen, we have had, in the last, I think, 6 months, have had a couple of public hearings go really late. And I don't know how we put a caution into that, but I don't think decision making is at its best when you're in a meeting that goes past 9 or 9:30. I think we can all soldier through after a dinner for a little while, but that's one thing I just want to throw on the record. The other thing, and this is minor, I know, but it would be something to maybe for you guys to watch out for. We have these council liaison positions. So, for example, I'm liaison to the Anti-Racism Advisory Committee as well as REACH. And their meetings are held on the same day at almost exactly the same time. So it might be just, if you had their schedule, and just to make sure that you don't have those sort of conflicts for liaison positions, because what I've had to do is flip flop, or leave one early and try to get to the other for a while. So that's really, I think, all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I will just, there's Councillor Essinger. Go ahead.
Just following up on Councillor McKean's comments, WAVE is always on public hearing night. And I think it does make some challenges, so maybe we can inform them, because any other night we wouldn't have meetings late into the night. So it does create some challenges trying to go to the meetings. I appreciate those comments. The other thing, Councillor McKean's comments about us going past 9:30. Inevitably, we feel obligated to hear because people are already sitting there to stay later than 9:30. And it puts us in a very challenging position because we understand. So it'd be great if we had some sort of discussion at 7 to say, folks, please, we'll come back, because I think it does feel a great pressure under council to do that, to stay a little longer and finish the item. And that is challenging. And I do not do my best work after 10 p.m. But I'm sure some might be able to do that. My other question is on the summer and Christmas breaks. This year, the summer break moved differently than other years. Are we moving it around from year to year, or just trying something differently?
I think it all depends on when we start the schedule in the new year. If we started a week earlier, your break might begin a bit earlier. What we try to do is get in a full rotation of meetings before you leave on a break. So we would have to have a council meeting before the week. There may have been other considerations, including the other weeks that were recesses because of certain meetings. So we try to juggle all of that. I don't know, if there is a preference for when the summer meeting is held, we can work around that by either moving things up a little or moving them back.
I wasn't sure about the calendar, but I think consistency helps. So if we were going to say every August we're off, or, so we can plan ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a moving target. I know I've booked my holidays and I've changed them more than once, not because you book a year in advance. So that was one of my comments. Consistency helps on those kind of things. So really appreciate the work. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Zadek.
Thank you. What I'm about to say, I know has been mentioned in years past, but just to say again, on a day like today, we're starting at 9:30. And of course, this committee meeting is going to likely end soon, but we're scheduled to be in session until 9:30 p.m. with the public hearing that's also today. So on days where we have any kind of evening meetings, I think we should be mindful about the start time, because under regular circumstances where folks drive into City Hall and it might take the bus in or ride their bikes, however the case may be, it sometimes is impractical to go home. So if you're showing up at 9 in the morning, and then if we do go late, it could be up to 10 p.m. as discussed, and that's just a long day. So I'd be mindful of that. And then the afternoon breaks that we have for 15 minutes, sometimes I wish those were a little bit longer, and I would even take away from the dinner break being an hour and a half, because an hour and a half makes sense for a lunch break because we typically have other meetings scheduled during lunch. That's just the norm, whether we're meeting in the counselor conference room with a group or individually we're meeting with people. The hour and a half for lunch makes sense because of those meetings that I've talked about. But an hour and a half for dinner can be quite long, and that also it tempts us to shorten the dinner break often. But really, I think to reset well, on days with public hearings, I'd be interested in maybe a longer break. And I know that's sort of out of the scope of this discussion a little bit, but I just want to flag that because when we are in City Hall, sometimes, you have a side conversation in chambers for a minute or two, then you decide to walk back to your office to talk with your staff. And by the time you get there, you pretty much have to turn around again, let alone time for a bio break or anything. So just something to be mindful with the new council. I would suggest that at some point we look into the breaks and the times and considering shortening the dinner break. But leave it at that for now. And thanks, Councillor Knack, for chairing this meeting very well for 4 years.
Thank you, Councillor Zadek. Just quickly, I think the only feedback I would have, or a couple pieces of feedback, and I know we're already doing it for, you mentioned FCM and AUMA, and I have talked to the AUMA staff about this, which is that I know they have typically been very late to giving the calendar. So I have asked them to do that, but also I would ask you just to maybe check in with them as we're getting ready to develop the next calendar, because I have found there have been conflicts, and that's not at all our side. So it's the fact that calendar's been provided late, but just wanted to say maybe a nudge can help too. And I have since informed them as of Thursday when we had our strategic planning session. I wanted to ask, the one thing I didn't see on the report, or maybe I missed it there, but are we planning, in our rotations, we've seemingly been consistently holding sort of the Wednesday afternoon on the council week for non-regular, and I actually think that makes a lot of sense. So I wanted to know, is that the plan going forward to sort of hold that? And if you don't need it, we don't need it, but it's better to have it in our calendars and booked.
I do agree with you that it's very beneficial to have that time set aside in your calendars, and I will review the calendar today and see if that's the practice that if we're following that practice. And if we're not, I will definitely book some non-regular meetings.
Great. Okay.
In those afternoons. It makes sense for the overflow possibly from council or from public hearing as well. Right?
And that's sort of my thinking on this. And, I imagine the next council will ultimately decide if virtual participation will continue in meetings. I assume at this stage that's sort of almost an expectation now that we've done it. And that can, at times, make meetings long. It hasn't made all of them, but I think having that overflow is of value. The other question, and I think you mentioned no standing committee meetings when possible on Thursday afternoons. You just stated in your presentation the goal is to try to not have anything at all on Thursdays. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, because I think there's regional meetings, there's AUMA, there's a number of different organizations that typically use that Thursday, and they can go from morning until afternoon and late afternoon. I know we've been scheduling a lot of EAC meetings then, because that's been that time. Goes back to maybe if we need some and we have those Wednesday afternoons set aside, rather using that than trying to fit in 2 hours on a Thursday when it feels like, again, I'll speak for myself selfishly, the AUMA meetings often conflict with anything we schedule on Thursdays, and I don't like to have to choose between the two. So. But otherwise, I think the change you're making going back to executive on the Wednesday, I don't know. I'm just curious. Is there rationale why? Did everyone say that's better or worse? Just
no. I think, and I believe Ms. Giesbrecht is on the line, and she might want to address this one.
It's really not a big deal. I guess I was just curious if there had been any pressing feedback that had suggested that would be better for that or not.
I believe the feedback was mostly from the city manager and the mayor.
Perfect.
Is my understanding. Because they both need to attend those meetings.
Yes.
And because they were both held on Mondays, they made for very busy weekends every weekend.
Makes sense. Okay. No, I don't need that's a good enough explanation for me. Those are all my questions. Anyone else? I guess I'll wait for a moment for the time to be removed and go back to the speaker list. Sorry, I'm just.
I'm on the board, Councillor.
Oh,
Knack.
thank you. Yeah, I'm just waiting to see, but go right ahead, Councillor Hamilton.
I think this is a really interesting report. I just want to thank the clerks for putting it together, and of course your ongoing consultation on our schedules. But I think, you know, to some of the concerns that Councillor Zadek brought up, and Councillor Esslinger, for the past 18 months, we've been working from home or in a hybrid situation. And I was curious, from the clerk's position, uh, I understand this will be up to the next council to decide, but uh, there, I think, I guess maybe, is there a recommended course of action with regards to the continuing work from home hybrid model, or allowing speakers, for instance, to phone into meetings for public hearing, etc.?
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. I would say that during the pandemic, we've shown that it is a possibility to have speakers both in person and remotely. We've heard a lot of comments from speakers who have participated remotely that it has been much easier for them to participate, and that they've been able to participate when they otherwise could not have. So the feedback we're getting is really that it is a good practice. But as you said, I mean, that will be a decision that council will have to make. For the time being, we have removed those limitations on remote participation that were in your procedures bylaw, so that until changes are made to that bylaw, participating remotely is an option for speakers and for councillors as well.
All right, and which I appreciate personally, but I guess maybe this is something for my colleagues to contemplate going into the next term. Are there trade-offs for us? And I don't think that's to be resolved today or decided, but there might be a discussion to be had about trade-offs in terms of hours and schedules. Mr. Beaudry, I know when you did the initial survey on some of the scheduling for council in the coming term, you were, one of the questions that was asked was about moving public hearing times back to daytime. And, you know, I understand you would have received some fairly varied feedback on that. Can you help sort of highlight why you kept the schedule mostly the same at this point? And I just bring the public hearing times up as an example, for instance.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Hamilton. When we did a survey asking if councillors would be amenable to starting public hearings at 9:30 instead of 1:30. To be honest with you, I don't think we received enough responses to make any decision either way. And those responses that we did received were mixed. Some of you liked the idea. Some of you didn't because you felt it would it might interfere with some public participation at meetings because they would have to take they might have to take a full day off, and others were really on the fence and had no preference. So that's what we learned from that, and the reason we left it as is we felt we didn't have a sufficient enough number of responses to make the change.
And perhaps, Mr. Chair, if you would let me build on what Mr. Beaudry is saying in response to Councillor Hamilton's questions. I think what we're contemplating is presenting the calendar to the new council, going through council onboarding, council transition, council orientation, and then in the first quarter of next year, once the new council has had a chance to participate in the flow of committee meetings and then into council schedules. We're happy to look at the calendar again, perhaps in the first quarter of next year, and we can take feedback and directly respond to the wishes of council.
And I would have imagined that it would be best for a new council to make its decisions about attendance, committee flow, et cetera, based on sort of how things are in the status quo, and then, of course, how they would prefer to operate things. All right, thank you.
Thank you. I just need to wait for the speakers list to pop back up and see if there's anyone else. We don't know? Okay, so if there is anyone else, I might just ask you to speak up, as that list might not pop back up. I'm not hearing any. I actually just thought of one last question based on that, so I'll quickly jump in. Can we, especially because that will go to the next council, that question, can we ask the public what would be their interest? So if virtual participation was permitted, as an example, would people care what time it starts at, 1:30 or 9:30? Might be worth seeing if we can get some broader public feedback, because if virtual participation is allowed and that helps overcome some of the scheduling challenges, it might be better to actually schedule the public hearing starting at 9:30, and instead of having an overflow the next day, having your overflow essentially that night if for some reason it really backs up. I'm not sure that's the perfect idea, and then you have the Wednesday afternoon, can be for council services, can be for other meetings that might have been filled in, but we're holding that time anyways. So just something might be worth asking to help inform whatever the next council's decision point is.
I think that's a great idea, Councillor Knack, and we'll take that away and we will survey.
Great.
No need to pass a motion to that.
No, I didn't think so. We can trust you on that. Perfect. That was my only other question. Councillor Essinger, I saw you unmute yourself.
Yes, I did try to request to speak. My follow-up thought was we were going to pilot having childcare so people could participate in public hearings. Of course, with the pandemic, that didn't happen. But it's one of the factors that we may want to leave for the next council as they consider when public hearings are. If there's virtual participation, it does help those who have childcare challenges. So I think it's part of the mix and the discussion as we go forward.
Thank you, Councillor Essinger.
Excellent. Well, if there are no other questions, I can take a motion from someone on the committee to receive this report for information. Councillor Katarina?
I'll move, we receive this for information.
Thank you. Anyone, anyone wishing to speak to it? Which we sort of just did. But you could still. Seeing none, please vote. And did he scribe freeze completely or just the speakers list?
We've opened the vote, but it is not showing up currently. If we may do a roll call vote, that would be fantastic.
We certainly can. So I don't think he ended up joining, but Councillor Walters, just to double check. Councillor Banga? Councillor Banga, I do see you here. Are you in favor of receipt of information?
Of course, yes.
Very good, thank you. Councillor Zadok?
Yes.
Councillor McKean?
Yes.
Councillor Hamilton?
Yes.
Councillor Katarina?
Yes.
Mayor Iveson, I don't think has joined us. Councillor Essinger?
Yes.
Councillor Cartmel?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Paquette, I don't think I saw join yet either. And I'm a yes. And eScribe just came up for me. But we have declared the vote. That is carried unanimously. Before we all leave, there is a motion without customary notice. Councillor Katarina, if you can.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. The council waived the rules on providing notice of motion as set out in section 32 of bylaw 18155, council procedures bylaw, to allow Councillor Hamilton to make a motion without notice regarding costs associated with attendance at Federation of Canadian Municipalities meetings.
Thank you, and I think we'll have to do a roll call vote again on that. So, Councillor Banga,
Yes.
Councillor Zadok,
Yes.
Councillor McKean,
Yes.
Councillor Hamilton,
Yes.
Councillor Katarina,
Yes.
Councillor Essinger,
Yes.
Councillor Cartmel,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That is carried. Councillor Hamilton, do you want to make that motion? You have the wording?
Thank you. I do. I'll make the motion and then update a committee on this. I'm moving that costs associated with attendance at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities meetings for Councillor Sarah Hamilton be absorbed by the Office of the Councillor's Common Travel and Conferences budget. And this, if you can recall, in our meeting in July, we had a long conversation about FCM, and I'm pleased to inform committee that further to our discussion, my membership on FCM on behalf of City Council and the City of Edmonton was accepted, and I will be attending. So that's good news for the City of Edmonton, and thank you once again for your support.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions on that? You'll just have to speak up since the speakers list isn't there, just to make sure. Seeing none, I'll do a roll call vote again. Councillor Banga,
Yes.
Councillor Zadok,
Yes.
Councillor McKean,
Yes.
Councillor Hamilton,
Yes.
Councillor Katarina,
Yes.
Councillor Essinger,
Yes.
Councillor Cartmel,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes, and that motion is carried. Wonderful. Well, any other notices? Oh, well, I'll see if there's any notices of motion. Seeing none, the final Council Services Committee meeting of the 2017 through 2021 term is now adjourned. Thanks, everyone.